Good evening. Welcome to Have I Got News for You? I'm Jack D. In the news this week, on the outskirts of Tripoli as rebel forces close in, Colonel Gaddafi makes a desperate bid for freedom. After his NHS reforms begin to damage the government's popularity, Andrew Lansley wakes to find a dog turd on his doormat. And there's a surprise in the cupboard for the new tenant renting out Russell Brand's old flat. On Ian Hislop's team is the BBC's defence correspondent who, when reporting live from Iraq, said, "I've been in the desert for days and I can tell you it's very sandy here." And still, people question the value of News 24. Please welcome Caroline Wyatt. And with Paul Merton tonight as a comedian who famously suffers from OCD. It's the third time he's been on the show, but who's counting? Well, he is. And it's an odd number, that's why he's sweating. Please welcome John Richardson. And we start with the bigger stories of the week. Ian and Caroline, here's yours.
This is Libya. Colonel Gaddafi, dictator who is defiant, as all dictators are. There are the rebels, but they seem to be fighting. Musa Kusa.
Musa Kusa.
He defected, saying to Colonel Gaddafi he was just popping out to the doctors. As you do. And Saif, son of Gaddafi, being liberated by John Simpson, or that's probably the offer.
Oh, and that's Obama providing lightsabers to the rebels. This is your patch. What's happening?
Well, they're still fighting on the ground, but the rebels are in a bit of a stalemate.
And who's the man who defected?
Musa Kusa, very smooth-talking foreign minister, but had also been what the papers called his fingernail puller-in-chief.
But he's just defected in order to get away.
Yes. Wouldn't you?
OK, I suppose that's reasonable.
How has Obama described the US involvement in Libya?
He's not involved, he's just gone over to complain about the noise.
Yeah. He's described it as kinetic military activity and a military operation with multiple partners.
Are you sure this isn't Charlie Sheen?
Time-limited, scope-limited military action. And then behind the scenes he referred to the Libya situation as a turd sandwich.
But they cut the crusts off, I don't like crusts.
You'd want a baguette, really, with a turd, wouldn't you?
Did anyone see Sarah Palin's reaction on Fox News? She actually came up with a new word for the whole thing. Let's have a look.
You know, another big question that has to be asked, Greta, is, are we at war? I haven't heard the president say that we are at war, and that's why I, too, am not knowing, do we use the term intervention? Do we use war? Do we use skirmish? What is it?
But that is quite brilliant, because that is the American reaction.
Yes.
It's a skirmish.
What is
It's
it?
a skirmish. They're
Yes.
desperate not to be involved, but they sort of are.
You can tell the way she talks that literally every word she doesn't know what the next one's going to be when she says it.
Is it a skirmish, in your opinion?
I think it's a fairly major skirmish, as skirmishes go.
Yes, as skirmishes go, yeah.
How long will we be there?
People, I think, are hoping that it will be relatively short and quite soon that Gaddafi will go away.
Right. How come we managed to sack half the armed forces on the same day we went into Libya?
But, I mean, the MOD does try and do things right.
Does it?
It tries to get value for money because you have things like the, you know, the MOD eBay, e-disposals. So if you go on there, you can go and buy all the kit that they're trying to flog off. So that's
What,
value for
everything?
money. No, Ark Royal, for example, is on there. At the
What, the
moment.
Ark Royal's on eBay?
Is on e-disposal. If you click, it actually says add to cart.
Is there a price?
No, there was no price, and you have to
So you
write
can
a
bid?
letter.
In the last 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Do you think I'll get it for 10 quid?
Yeah.
I love the idea of just you and Colonel Gaddafi locked on eBay at that.
What has the reaction been to America's decision to remove its jets from the NATO action?
Well, people are disappointed, because it means we've got to fill the hole.
Did you hear what Lindsey Graham, the Republican senator, said?
Nope.
When we called for a no-fly zone, we didn't mean our planes. And the rebels also have another secret weapon, as described here by this fighter.
We have our GPSs, we have our maps, we have Google Earth, we have... I am a computer engineer, and there are many telecommunications engineers, and we manage ourselves.
You're fighting with Google Earth?
Why not?
They don't lack a certain bravery, do they?
Caroline, I was wondering, because you've covered war in Afghanistan and reported on the Kosovo conflict and been embedded in Basra. Do you... Do you ever miss the thrill of your early career when you were writing for Chartered Surveyor Weekly?
It's more fun doing broadcasting, though, because you never know what you're going to end up doing.
But when someone like you, or John Simpson, I often wonder, when you go somewhere on holiday and you turn up in the town, do people get worried?
They probably would with John Simpson. They always did with Kate Adie. When Kate Adie went somewhere, they knew that it was serious.
Get your stuff in a wheelbarrow and get out of here. It's the Arab Spring, which now it's reached Libya, has found its first cuckoo. The defection of Libya's foreign minister divided the British cabinet. Some ministers thought Moussa Koussa was a useful ally. Some thought Moussa Koussa was a terrorist sympathiser. And Eric Pickles thought Moussa Koussa was a chickpea starter. The balance of power has been constantly shifting, which has been particularly traumatic for the people of Brega, which is currently in the rebels' hands. Or, if you're watching the repeat, Gaddafi's hands. Or if you're watching this in a couple of years' time, on Dave, in Al-Qaeda's hands. Paul and John, take a look at this.
That's Eton School boys, presumably. That's where the poor people live, with outside facilities. Nick Clegg looking at a spaceship in miniature, and... what a boring piece of footage. But that happened at 2:30. That's Edward, isn't it? So is it about sort of meritocracy stuff?
Very close, yes.
It's about Nick Clegg saying that fathers shouldn't give their sons opportunities in business. But, I mean, you can't stop that. That's what people do, because they want to look after their kids, and they want them to go to the best schools, and they want them to have the best jobs, so you can't stop that.
No, well, let's move on then.
Yeah.
That was somebody supporting Nick Clegg. That was a TV first.
He only got his job because of his dad, and he got a free university degree. He's just sort of carrying on, eliminating anything he had in case someone steals the job that he doesn't really deserve.
He makes a big speech about how we shouldn't have internships, where your father puts in a word for you to get you your first job. And nobody says, Nick, how did you get your first job? Oh, my dad got it for me. You'd think you'd pay someone to do that, but he didn't. So he gave this huge, sort of much-hyped speech, and then it turned out that not only his first job he got because his dad recommended him to a Finnish bank...
Do you remember the name of it?
Finbank.
No? Yeah. It was called Posty Panky Banky. Yes, it's the bank that likes to say, hurdy-gurdy, gurdy-gurdy. Perhaps some of us around the table are guilty. Didn't you get the job here because your uncle is Lord Fauntleroy, is that...
Damn!
But that's what people do.
It happens at every class, though,
yes,
surely.
Absolutely. I said to my dad I wanted to be an astronaut. He said, there's a bloke down the road who's got a goldfish bowl and a bicycle pump. I'll have a word with him. And before you know what it was, I was on the move.
So basically, they're trying to stop parents from helping their children.
Yes, and they're trying to stop people like themselves getting into government, which is not a bad...
Who did David Willits say were primarily responsible for damaging social mobility?
Women.
Yes.
Women? Well, all of them?
Well, specifically educated middle-class women.
Like Caroline,
yes.
Taking away jobs from men.
Stomping on... But it was specifically working-class men, wasn't it?
Discouraging young working-class men, like John here, from going to university because you took their places.
Bugger.
So, should we talk about Andrew Lansley? You must be feeling sorry for him, Paul.
Well, to be honest, I've not been in the country for 3 weeks. I've got no idea what's going on.
Oh, right.
He's the health minister.
Oh, yes.
He's had a bad week because his reforms have run into a few problems. And he had to stand up in the House of Commons and say, these reforms that I've been pushing through, we're going to have a pause. A natural pause, like when someone dies on the operating table. It's a natural pause in the operation, and it's dead. I mean, everyone has objected to these reforms.
He's been working on the NHS reforms for 7 years, but now that...
I mean, is he thick or something?
Yeah.
7 years to get the wrong answer.
John, you're probably more aware of this than some of us. MC rapper of Next Generation.
MC rapper.
MC...
He's gone straight to the nub there with his name, hasn't he? I find I call myself Snoop Dogg. People think I'm a dog, but if I call myself MC Rapper, they know very well straightforward I'm a rapper, you see.
Look at this.
Andrew Lansley, greedy Andrew Lansley, tosser. The NHS is not for sale, you grey-haired manky codger. So the budget of the PCTs, he wants a hand to the GPs. Oh please, don't geeks are gonna buy from any willing provider and get care from private companies. So the pie and the one apiece, got the rise on the peas like mice for the cheese. Talk truth when I write the beat, you talk shite when you speak. See money when you close your eyes to sleep.
I mean, good point about the PCTs. He's left out the health authorities, though, hasn't he? I mean, the whole purchaser-provider thing, I don't think comes over.
This is Nick Clegg's social mobility drive. George Osborne is the son of a baronet who co-founded the upmarket wallpaper company Osborne & Little. Also the answer to the questions, who is the Chancellor and what does he know about the economy? The social mobility campaign is based on the belief that you shouldn't get a job just because of who your dad is. Yet another blow to Saif Gaddafi. Even some Tories had their doubts about the reforms. The front page of Monday's Independent showed William Hague's reaction. And so to round two, a new idea from the props department.
Wow, we've got a props department.
We have, yeah.
Fantastic.
So, for the last time, it's the strengthometer of news. Fingers on buzzers.
What?
I get my... Fingers on buzzers, teams. Here's the first one. Yes, Paul and John.
This is one story I have seen. Mohammed Al-Fayed has erected a statue of Michael Jackson outside a statue, there's the important part of that sentence, outside Craven Cottage, which is a fitting tribute. Fulham play in black and white, and Michael Jackson's been both during his lifetime, so I couldn't think of a better place.
Correct. Mohammed Al-Fayed's £100,000 tribute to well-known football fan Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Here we are.
They've got quotes on the plinth from Steven Spielberg, Beyoncé, Paul McCartney and Fulham midfielder Dixon Atuhu.
He visited Fulham once. He saw a game there once. They should have a statue of Johnny Haynes, don't you agree?
They have got a statue of
Have
Johnny
they?
Haynes, yeah.
Oh, where's that?
It's next to the Jackson one. Because I imagine, like, at night, it's like night at the museum and they come alive and they have to just talk to each other. I was the first player to earn £100 a week, you know.
Got some quotes from the fans. One said, "We're a laughing stock." I don't know what he meant about the Michael Jackson statue, but... Another one said, "It's absolutely ludicrous." And a third fan just summed it up by saying, "Why? Why us?" What did Mohammed Al-Fayed say about it?
Football fans love it. And, you know, if some stupid fans don't understand and appreciate such a gift this guy gives to the world, you know, they can just go to hell.
Matt Blank, the spokesman for the Michael Jackson World Network fan club, wasn't impressed. He said, "The clothes are from the mid-'80s. They've given him the skin colour he had in the late 80s, and the nose looks like what he had done in the mid-90s. It doesn't quite work." Defending the statue, Al-Fayed said that Michael Jackson loved Fulham Football Club, adding, "The last game he attended here, he was running like a child." Well, fingers on buzzers, teams. Here's the next one. Yes, Paul and John first.
And this is a badger, and it's some police force somewhere has been attributing burglaries to badgers. Yes?
They're completely right. Yes,
Right, really?
They are doing,
So, yeah, there's sort of like broken twigs in the forest, which so badgers are going on this big criminal spree while you're watching your badgers in the back garden, these mates around the front nicking your car.
Can't afford to investigate crime anymore, so they're just inventing spurious bullshit reasons. Oh, that's bloody badgers, that one, yeah.
Is there any evidence against the badgers?
No, there isn't specifically...
Any confessions?
Any
They haven't
evidence.
gassed them?
They're clearly dressed like criminals.
Yeah.
It's...
They don't know how to wear the mask across the eyes, got it the wrong way round, look.
According...
Stupid animals. There's a meerkat selling dodgy insurance round the back. Not dodgy in case that represents any company, of course, that sells insurance. I'm sure they're reputable as any. If that helps it.
The reason why they're blaming the badgers, it helps the crime statistics look better. Instead of having to log it as a shed being broken into, they can say, oh, it was a badger, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In unrelated animal news, why has Luna, the German cow, been in the papers this week?
It jumps like a horse.
It doesn't really jump.
Oh, have a look at this.
I've seen it.
I've bet on worse horses than this, I can tell you that.
That is not a jump. That is a push.
Did it? There we go. Yeah. This is the news that police are reclassifying crimes to keep numbers down. As a result of this, Crime Watch will now be merged with Badger Watch, thereby making just the one unwatchable programme. Time now for the odd one out round. Ian and Caroline, your four are Nick Clegg, Wayne Rooney, Oliver Letwin, and City Boys, Harry Fields and Sebastian Marsh.
I think this is about people being caught saying things that they didn't mean to be heard. Because those two City Boys did an email?
They did an email about one of the... I think one had a girlfriend, now ex-girlfriend, and his friend emailed him and said, would you mind if I had a go? And friend emailed back and said, no, feel free, but, you know, she's a bit difficult. And unfortunately, he'd CC'd in the ex-girlfriend. And then the email went to the friend, and he sent it to everyone he knew, and they sent it to everyone they knew.
Yeah.
Quite chummy, wasn't it? The tone was very much, hey, look, don't want to offend you. You know, I'd hate for you to get upset as a friend. I'd bang your ex-missus.
To which the other one replied, wouldn't care in the slightest. To be honest, she's a The other one replied saying, have you got an email address? I won't tell her you gave it to me. Feel free, by all means. Just don't say I gave you her email. Good luck. You'll need it. And then he goes, I CC'd her in. Oh, my God. Are you still living with her? P.S. might still have a crack. Nothing to lose. Yeah, I still live with her, and that's why I'm in so much trouble. You might as well have a crack, certainly nothing to lose. And sometimes there's one more email that says, things not looking great in the house right now.
The thing with these stories, it's always like when a footballer gets caught doing something and you know this stuff they've done before that. When one email conversation like that gets to the papers, there are millions of people who talk like that and no one ever finds out. There's people you're sat next to, people you work with, who are actually despicable bastards.
I'd go along with that.
OK, so that wasn't meant to be heard. Oliver Letwin made a remark which was overheard by Boris Johnson. He said, we don't want any more people from Sheffield going on holiday.
Why doesn't he want people from Sheffield going on holiday?
I think it's something to do with airports. And Boris said this is what he said. Which isn't very loyal of him to report it.
Not very loyal of him, and it's quite something to sort of out-gaff Boris, isn't it, as well? Maybe that's why he was upset.
Nick Clegg had a microphone problem, and he said, coming out with David Cameron, there's nothing that we disagree on. We'll have to think of something.
Yes, he did. I think we've got a bit of footage. Nick Clegg, David Cameron.
Thank you very much. I'm sure there'll probably be television debates. We hope they'll be a bit better natured between the two of us, but it will be interesting. But anyway, thank you very much. You've been a fantastic audience. It's been lovely to come here today.
We keep doing this, but we don't find anything to bloody disagree on in the bloody TV debate.
Caroline, do you think we should go to war against the Liberal Democrats? Or is that too harsh?
too harsh.
That's who Sarah Palin thinks she is going to war. The Libyan Democrats.
Don't tell me you've lost your little sort of something for her, that you had a little sort of twinkle in your eye whenever Sarah Palin was mentioned, or something in your heart that just said, Sarah.
Just because I don't agree with all her views doesn't mean I've written her off as a woman.
What about Wayne Rooney, then?
Well, I think he's the odd one out.
OK.
Because everybody else didn't mean what they were saying to be heard.
Yeah.
But Wayne Rooney did mean it to be heard.
We can't show you the footage, but we have got a picture.
He's full of anger, isn't he?
Yeah.
I keep reading he's very angry.
Yeah.
And he gets more angry the more goals he gets.
Maybe football isn't the game for him after all. He did issue an apology afterwards. Anyone know what he said?
Sorry.
He said, emotions were running high, and on reflection, my heat-of-the-moment reaction was inappropriate. So, he does a lot of reflecting after the game, does Wayne. He's, Yes, so they've all been in trouble for remarks they've made in private, apart from Wayne Rooney, who's in trouble this week for remarks he made to camera. The Independent claimed that Rooney was responding to chants of, "You're just a fat granny shagger." Although how he could hear Colleen above all those West Ham fans is beyond me. OK, Paul and John, here's yours. Charlie Chaplin.
Never heard of him.
Goldfish in Stockport, Baroness Varzi, and a house in Swansea.
The only house that's been in the news is the one that looks like Hitler, that I'm aware of.
There's a house in Swansea that looks like Hitler. Hitler's only got one hall.
There's a house that has a sort of porch and a sloped roof that looks a bit...
Yeah, Nuremberg rallies when he had a bit of guttering around the side of his head. Well, there's the connection then. If there's a house that looks like Hitler, there's Charlie Chaplin with the Chaplin moustache, which later was appropriated by Hitler. So is the Goldfish or Baroness, what's her name, got a Hitler moustache?
There is a fish that looks a bit like Hitler as well.
Oh, that lets us off then. So Baroness, what's her name, is the odd one out because she's the only one that doesn't look like Hitler or ever been compared to Hitler.
Yeah, they've all been likened to Hitler, apart from Baroness Varzi, who has recently been likened to Goebbels.
Oh, really?
After she claimed in an article in The Sun last week that the alternative vote system would give more power to extremist parties. So I have to now show you a picture of the house that looks like Hitler.
I'm on tenterhooks. Yeah, sort of.
He wants to get rid of that pole in front of it, by the way. The Goldfish in Stockport has been likened to Hitler. There he is.
Well, cross between Hitler and Roy Orbison.
His name, of course, was Adolfish, he's called.
Adolfish.
Yes, and this, of course, allowed The Sun to dust off some pictures from the website catsthatlooklikehitler.com. I'd like to see a picture of mein Führer.
That's fantastically good. It actually looks
really
more
good.
sinister than Hitler.
I'd rather have Hitler on my lap than that cat.
Well, you know your own business best.
Time now for the Missing Words round, which this week features as its guest publication the Daily Sport. To mark its sad demise, we're using the paper that brought you headlines such as World War II bomber found on moon, and followed that with World War II bomber found on moon vanishes. So we'll start with this. 1,000 line up for what in Cardiff?
Anne Robinson Punchathon.
Train to London?
No, the answer is free donut.
Oh.
Yes, this was at the opening of a Krispy Kreme store, which, incidentally, is Cardiff's first health food shop. By the way, don't be embarrassed, Wales. People queue in London too. Admittedly, we get an iPad at the end of it. Next, aliens turned my son into what?
Liberal Democrat.
I think I remember this from the time. Is it an olive?
No, it's not an olive. The answer is fish finger.
Yes.
I'm surprised you didn't guess that. This is a classic Daily Sport headline. You may well laugh, but it's true. Have a look at this genuine documentary about the Daily Sport.
Can you describe the object?
It's a big, like a spaceship thing. I was looking up to it. I've gone to approach my son Lyndon when a gust of smoke was come.
Where did smoke come from? From the bottom
From
of
the
the
bottom
spacecraft?
of the spacecraft, yeah. I was frightened to approach him because I was frightened as well. And I've gone to get him. This gust of smoke's come. Lyndon just disappeared. And all I was left with was a fish finger.
Well, it's something to remember him by.
So you might never find him. Next, gang of 50 chickens evicted after what?
Worst series of Big Brother ever.
Gang of 50 chickens evicted after corpse of Colonel Sanders found in basement of derelict house.
The answer is rampaging in gardens and crowing at 4 a.m. for 3 years. Yes, naturally it was the lead story on Fox News. As they were rounded up, one chicken said, "All right, it's a fair cop, but it's the badgers what done the sheds."
It's a fair coup, that could have been.
See, you do a pun and everyone applauds.
Yeah. Well, that mine haven't been sweated over for the last 3 days.
Next, I lost pet gerbil in what?
In San Francisco, says songwriter's first attempt at the hit record.
It's in fact, I lost pet gerbil in my rolls of fat. Gail Roberts said, I decided to contact the Sunday Sport to tell my terrible story. If it stops this from happening to one more gerbil, it'll be worth it. Yeah. Please, fat people of Britain, check your folds for missing rodents. So the final scores are Ian and Caroline have 8, Paul and John have 9.
No. Very good.
Yeah, that's all right. And I leave you with news that in Milan, as the underage sex scandal threatens to bring down the presidency, Silvio Berlusconi's lawyer arrives at court. In Los Angeles, 2 passers-by emerge from beneath Charlie Sheen's balcony after the drug squad rings the doorbell. And outside Benghazi, a Libyan rebel follows the only instructions provided with the British-made rocket launcher. Good night.
Animals beginning with G. Thinking caps on. QI is in just a moment with an extra special guest. Then at 10:35, John Bishop is live from his hometown and living the dream. While over on BBC 3 now, Russell Howard's Good News.